Angela, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. I see myself as an advocate for diversity.
Angela Cretu is one of the world's foremost leaders in the beauty sector. Former global CEO of Avon, she led the company in more than 30 countries, driving digital innovation and women's empowerment. Angela inspires millions with a business vision and commitment to social causes.
And I would tell you, some of my biggest strategic decisions were inspired by conversations with these young people, because I was sure that I was there because they need to hear my voice. Because we are all learning now through this new journey, because they don't know what doesn't work. If emotionally people are not there, nothing happens. And that's my opinion. I know it's on the optimistic side.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, Angela, welcome to It's All About AI podcast. And, as you know, we were just talking outside earlier. This podcast is not about AI, coincidentally. It is about AI in very subtle ways. But I guess, throughout our conversation, we're going to be showing people, things about your journey in life, things that you've learned. You did have a long stint as CEO of Avon as well. But also there's a lot that you can teach as well, from other aspects of your life. So for those listening to this conversation we're about to have, who do you think would benefit the most from listening in?
Let me first thank you for inviting me. I absolutely love the way you lead these conversations, because you bring the topic of AI in a very human, wrapped in a human touch, or with a human touch, which I think it's creating a friendlier, access to the tech concept of AI and its applicability, and makes it more approachable, less scary. Mm-hmm. So therefore, now speaking about your audience, I think it's for all people who are curious to understand how AI is going to impact their lives, and how people like me and like many others that you invite in your podcast are reacting to it, how they build their lives around it, what they've learned from it, how they navigate their life with it, and creating actually with this a new opportunity for us to learn. Yes, because we are all learning now through this new journey, and I think it has never been a better time for us to be authentic, both about our vulnerabilities, our still, lack of knowledge about AI, and the overall expectations that this is going to be a good chapter for us.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has different opinions. Sometimes people are a little bit doom and gloom about it, but I'm optimistic as well.
Like with every change,
Yeah, change, and you know a lot about change. So we will talk a little bit about your time at Avon, but we'll keep it quite short because you've spoken a lot about it. Outside of your CEO role as Avon before, what are the 2 or 3 things that you think you're wanting to represent now? So who is Angela today? What does Angela want to talk about? What's Angela's new mission?
I want to strive to be a connector, an enabler, and a multiplier. Mm-hmm. I've dedicated my life to women empowerment, to convince the key decision-making forums that a healthy mix of perspectives coming from the parity of genders, age groups, different as well perspectives, cultural backgrounds, will always bring a better decision. Mm-hmm. So I see myself as an advocate for diversity. Mm-hmm. And I'm a keen, I would say, explorer to understand how technology blends with our life decision making, and really trying to keep learning. I'm an avid learner, to make it not just an ubiquitous kind of a presence in our everyday routine, but as well get the best out of it. Yep. I'm a mom of a teenager going now through GCSEs.
Same.
So you too. So you would understand these weeks are quite intense. and a wife of almost 30 years.
Wow.
Yes.
So going into family a little bit, obviously being CEO for being in a very demanding job for 25 years and CEO for many years, what are some of the sacrifices you've had to make that you've never spoken about? What are the things that you had to give up? There must have been a lot of things to be able to feed this Avon monster company that you're running, and also the transformation you're bringing it through. You became CEO around the COVID time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Which is a fantastic time to be CEO of a company. You love pain. So what are some of the sacrifices you had to go through? There must be many.
I would first reject the term sacrifice altogether. I would say sacrifice is for different type of trade-offs. Yes, when somebody really gives up their life or their this is what I would call a true sacrifice. I think for the rest of us are trade-offs.
Trade-offs, yeah.
Of course, like with everything else in life, everything comes with a mix of benefits and hard work or effort that needs to be invested. So I would say, yes, there were lots of trade-offs. Every 3 years I changed country. I had to learn a new language.
Wow.
As well have my family with me and going not only through the personal change process, but as well making sure that they feel good about it too.
Yeah.
And this hasn't been easy. Countries I've lived in and were culturally, I would say, and from actually all aspects, extremely different one from another. I mean, imagine it's US, then Russia, then Turkey, yes, Middle East, Central Eastern Europe, various locations. In the last 5 years, lived here in London. So culturally, I would even call out extremes. So I would say there were lots of trade-offs in terms of the way I learned to build my social life, rebuild it rather.
Wow, yeah.
Every 3 years, and create the sense of having a home and not just a rented house.
Yeah.
Everywhere I've been.
Yeah, moving around is tough. I've moved also 3 or 4 countries now. And I get it, especially with a family. You have a demanding job, but you want to make sure everybody's okay. You have that mother, you have that wife role to play as well. It can be very tough. What's particularly, you like to go on walks with your husband quite a lot, I understand. Is there a memorable walk that you had with him where you had to, really discuss a very difficult topic that was hard to navigate? Maybe it's something around, moving. It could be.
Many of those walks were with, I would say, life-changing decisions. Because you would imagine, for us, everything had a high degree of intensity, given the fact that we've never been in our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And these walks have really helped us. I would remember at least 2 or 3, including the last one when I've decided to step aside to the shock of my friends and my board and my colleagues from a career where everyone thought, okay, that now I'm at my prime. So that was, I had that kind of walk with my husband to go through this decision.
Must have been a long walk.
And choose it. There were many walks on the same topic.
50,000 steps.
But the last one, when I finally made a decision,
Yeah.
Was the one I would remember, even the steps we've made and where we've been.
I mean, when they were looking for a new CEO around just before COVID or during COVID, was it you initially said no? Is that right?
Yes, I haven't. First of all, I haven't applied. There were 3 internal candidates.
Yeah.
And we are all the funny part is that we asked cluster leaders and many other executives. We are all like in election campaign. Yes, we are waiting to see. We are even creating a small betting house.
Oh wow!
Trying to anticipate who is going to be out of the 3 candidates. But then in the last week, just before they were supposed to announce who of the 3 is going to be our next CEO, they called me to Brazil, and I initially assumed that they want me because I was a veteran in the company. I've been to so many clusters, led so many transformative projects that they want me to support their designated CEO, which I was very happy to do. And then they told me that part of their due diligence, as they've been to many places around the world, they kept hearing my name. And it was natural. Look, after 20 years, there is some legacy, both good and bad. I mean, there is no way one can hide when it comes to the impact. And they said that Avon needs a radical transformation, that there is a need of a trust relationship for such a turnaround. And out of everything they've learned about the company till that very moment, they thought I should be the CEO. And initially I said no, because I was not convinced when we talked about the radical transformation that we've had the same vision. My vision was to tackle a taboo subject, of 100-year-old taboo subject of Avon not being any longer a traditional direct selling, and create a premiere in our industry and actually open it up to be an omni-channel. And to my joy, they said, actually, you know what, we are going to go into this direction, and we are by your side. And we've done it.
Honestly, I think what you did needs to be studied and needs to go to business schools, because every CEO was grappling with just having to adapt because of COVID. And that was an enormous time of change, which was forced upon everybody. But then you're trying to transform a company while all these other external factors are also happening with so much uncertainty. And to keep everybody in the same track to transform a company during a time of so much uncertainty, when so much personal chaos is also happening, you need to be very special to carry that through.
Or let me give you the flip side. Thank you very much, first of all, for the compliment. But the flip side would be, just for the authenticity, I would say it's the best moment to do it.
Yeah.
Because this is when people are most elastic to change, because of the shock of the change they see around themselves. They've been extremely open to try to talk about the unspeakable and try the untried. And that was the magic moment for us. So it made it easier in reality for me, because in good times to be able to drive such transformation, and here we talk technology as well, and we will get to that topic today, and AI too. People are resistant natural to change. They only react when they are threatened, or they see a big opportunity that is tangible. It means something to them personally. Otherwise, they don't. And if they might execute a change, but doesn't necessarily make it sustainable, because they just follow commands. They are not agents of change themselves.
I've worked with a lot of boards and CEOs on creating change, because I also do transformations. And you're absolutely right. If the only way to brute force a transformation culturally, in my opinion, is you have to put into people's annual objectives. It has to touch their bonuses and promotions. And then all of a sudden they start paying attention to it and they prioritize it. And then when you pass the messaging down that they got to do X, Y, and Z, it gets done. And it helps a lot, right?
Absolutely, Daniel. I mean, what many people don't understand is that the era of Jack Welch type of leadership with command and control, although some leaders still try to apply it nowadays, that is over. I mean, it would create some sudden shock and change, but it doesn't make it sustainable nor better. You need an army of leaders. I mean, especially talking about embedding technology, turning around a company, or to completely transform the commercial model, organizational model of a company, to create that leaner, more agile, faster to respond to market business model. This cannot be done by one leader at the top. It's impossible. So you need everyone to buy into the change. And if emotionally they are not there, I'm not talking just intellectually, rationally. If emotionally people are not there, nothing happens.
So let's go back a little bit to know a little bit more about your earlier days. Romanian, grew up during the time of communism. Can you walk us through that? What was daily life like? Was there any good sides to being in a communist rule at the time? And has that made you a stronger woman, wife, mother? How has that contributed to who you are today, you think?
Let me start with the good sides. For many people, even the younger generations right now in Romania, when they hear the stories, it's like they hear from another country. They cannot believe this has happened to their parents. In that environment, there was no right to self-expression. Yes, we had the good parts were that there was this sense of equality. Everyone was a comrade. So it didn't count you are a woman or a man, you had absolutely equal chances to do whatever. So I haven't felt any time during my childhood that I'm any less than any man. So to me, that was a good part of communism, because it built that kind of strength of me feeling comfortable in any environment, working both men and women. And the second positive thing I take from those times is the sense of resilience. Nothing scares me. I dealt with multiple, literally life and death crises, not just business crises, not just economic crises. I had few situations when I had to deal with life and death, and that my upbringing kept me strong, focused, with the right priority of really having people in focus, and then a clear, cold mind in creating the right premises and the right steps and right actions for us to tackle that crisis. So I think this is what I take from communism, because the hardship, the scarcity was so big that we always had to be extremely resourceful to be able to live a decent life. Starting with cooking from 2 ingredients, to learn how to live and enjoy life with no electricity, because Ceausescu would cut, 4 to 8 hours electricity every day, to get rid of Romania's debt, external debt, and to the detriment of the quality of life we all had under his leadership, and many other things. And on top of it, the fear, yes, to talk and to express yourself. So the negative part was this fear to stand out. And it took me lots of years to get out of it.
Yeah.
I keep the humility from it, understanding that I'm no one outside of collective. And I still have that concept of us, of humanity, and us as community counting more than desires of one. Yet learned how to appreciate that I'm coming with my own colors.
Yeah.
And because I'm different, I can actually complement the value others bring to the game, which was a concept I couldn't think of before.
Yeah, what you've described there is really able to appreciate things when they're scarce. So I have this, it's a horrible analogy, but I like to use it because I think it's relevant. But it's a toilet roll syndrome. When there's a lot of toilet roll or kitchen roll, you need the piece of paper, you'll use as much as you want, right? If you have the wrong mentality. But if you see it's finishing, it's almost at the end, you become very creative of how you can use a small piece to do a big job. So it's, like I said, terrible analogy. It's going to have to be edited out.
It's actually very good. The scarcity really builds creativity.
Yeah.
Because you become very resourceful. Whenever I've been, especially in businesses, because I worked from developing countries to developed countries. So processes, the management process in these countries, although part of the same corporate altogether, was very different.
Yeah.
In very developed countries who are doing relatively well for decades, there is quite a rigid process. So when a new situation comes up and there is no designed playbook in the company or policy how to react to it, people somehow gave the impression that they don't know what to do. They were paralyzed. And this is where, in a way, coming from that upbringing, it helped me, to bypass, create new bridges, create new policies, really opening up new opportunities, liberate people from those rigid frameworks to be able to be in control of the new situations that are happening to them.
Yeah, and I definitely think developing countries give you more of these,
Yes, because you
out
play
of
all
norm
roles.
situations.
It's like you are all-in-one men's show. You do lots of things.
Yeah, I'm half Brazilian, so I grew up in Brazil in the 80s, and it was very much fifth world country at the time. Let's say things have improved a lot.
Not any longer. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I love Natura products actually. They smell
Me
great,
too.
and a
Me
lot of the
too.
Amazon.
An amazing company.
Yeah, a lot of the Amazon ingredients that they put in, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned some life and death situations. I would
Yes.
love to hear one or two stories if you don't mind.
Mm.
So what actually happened? When did you almost die?
It was not mine. Actually it's even worse. Yes, because when you are under threat. I had one when I was under threat, but one where I felt I would rather die than not being able to solve the situation. So we had in the beginning of the war in Ukraine. We, like many other companies, we were working very hard to extract our people in those initial weeks when there was mayhem and all the roads are blocked and bombardments almost everywhere. And we gathered a squad, which was not necessarily a skill we had in our team. We hired professional fighters from different nationalities to extract our team from there. And they were coming from Hungary, some of them, of course, different nationalities. So they were supposed to have a meeting point with our associates outside of Kyiv. And they were mainly women, 2 rabbits, 1 dog and a cat, and kids. In total, 24 people. And what happened is that the car couldn't get through because they were all the bus couldn't get through because they were all blockages. But the problem was that people all were already by the side of that forest outside of Kyiv, where was the meeting point. And the temperature plummeted under -15. And in the meantime, it was already 6 p.m. It was dark, and all roads are blocked. And this fighter, the squad team, they told us we cannot get through, so we'll have to try again tomorrow morning because we cannot go. It was a curfew. They could not go through the night, and it was the longest night of my life. Because then you understand that although with a good intent, that decision to gather people there to organize this extraction could have killed them. Yes, overnight. Luckily, very strong women. They found a way. They find a motel there, and they could find shelter overnight. And in the morning, we could extract them. But to me, it was a night where I think I've lost 10 years of my life.
Yeah. So I have a software company that's in Slovakia. We have a lot of Ukrainian developers, and we were faced with similar situations, having to put a squad together and to help people. Horrible.
So you
horrible.
will know.
Yeah, it's horrible what war does.
Yes.
And the impact it has on families, having the men being taken away, and then just everyday life, right? It's just absolutely horrible.
It's senseless.
Yeah.
It's senseless. I always, and this is where I'm coming, and I'm advocating for a healthy mix of perspectives, because I bet that if in these decision-making rooms, political ones, we would have a better mix of perspectives from young people as well, from different backgrounds. I'm absolutely convinced war would not have been a choice.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned that you lived in Russia for a while. Was this prior or?
Prior, yes.
And
I still have very good friends everywhere. Yeah. I mean, and in Russia, and in Ukraine, and in Serbia. I learned their languages, their cultures. as well Middle East. Everywhere I've lived, I created bonds for life, and I paid the respect to the culture. I prayed with them, laughed with them, really been into their houses, connected to a way that Danilo really made me think. And this is where I suggest every young person in the world to have at least, not just to be tourists, but to go and travel and live in people's homes, not just in hotels. Yeah. Because then you get to the essence of understanding that there is no us and them.
Yeah.
And that diversity, it's a divine gift for us to complement one another. Yeah. And that our views and our religions and everything, they are not meant to oppose each other. They are all searching at the end for the same hopes and same objectives and same purpose. And moms everywhere pray for the same thing in their own language, their own religion, with their own rituals. But they pray for the same things.
Yeah, yeah. Did your time in Russia when this whole Ukraine war started,
yes.
did it give you a little bit more compassion towards Russian people? How was this? Because you have Russian friends, you think Ukraine was happening.
Kids died from both sides. Yeah. I mean, we are talking I don't know what's the latest number, 100,000 of young men.
Yeah.
And we will see soon a solution will be found, and then we would ask ourselves, was it really worth? From all sides, doesn't even matter. The history, the end is judging, and is judging already who is the aggressor, who is the victim. But what I'm telling is that it's life. Life is the most precious out of all there is. The odd for us to be alive, it's 1 in trillions.
Yeah.
And many times we forget how lucky we are to live in this very moment. And then we believe we have the luxury to sacrifice this life against all these odds.
Yeah, yeah.
For made-up principles.
Yeah. So you talk a lot about diversity, and it's something that you advocate for. Was there some? I saw maybe there was like a campaign around this, anti-campaign around this perfect women idea. Yeah. Are you really against it?
Yes.
And I want to talk a little bit more about that. What kind of inspired you to go against the grain? Because we live in a world where it's filters and people getting surgeries and trying to look perfect and trying to compete with this made up life. It doesn't exist. So why did that really touch a nerve for you? The perfect woman anti-campaign. Can you walk us through it?
To me, it's do you remember those Bond movies where he goes in the mission and have all these fights, and then somehow he ends up with a rose and with his impeccable suit, taking her out for dinner, with a perfect smile. I see this syndrome on Bond women, where they are supposed to wake up in the morning, all cheerful, do their, house chores and prepare kids, breakfast, prepare them for school, then go to work, and then to gym, because obviously they have to be in shape. And then, God forbid, to wait for their husband not smelling nice and smiling. And then it's all ending like in a happy American movie, Hollywood movie, that they live happily ever after. So this is what social media is feeding us with. And it's creating an unbearable standard. It's again a made up standard that at the end it sucks out the energy, the vital energy that one would use for so much better purposes. So to me, it's to advocate for authenticity, for finding every woman and every man will have certain characteristics that would add value to their community, find those and use them as multipliers. Use them to complement all the others. Express yourself physically, mentally, character-wise, skills-wise, with those unique traits that every one of us have.
Yeah, I've always said growing up, even as I was a young kid, I used to say there's a lot of beauty in the imperfection. So I used to call it the perfect imperfection. Because, the devil's in the detail, right? It's if you see something that's broken, and you look at it and you understand why, there's a story behind it. If you see something that's a little bit out of shape or looks a little bit different, there's a story behind it. I know Dove did a massive campaign around this, right? Were you inspired by that? What did you do also as campaigning around this topic?
We absolutely, what Dove did, they were pioneers to finally liberate. I mean, it was an liberating gesture for women everywhere to express themselves the way they are without meeting, the same Kim Kardashian standard. Yeah. We advocated for natural beauty, for the strength coming from within, to use makeup and beauty as enhancer and not makeup as per a look, to bring joy out of using beauty and not the stress of looking in a certain way. And I think this is what responsible beauty companies do. Because at the end, beauty is not just the color that we apply on our lips, it's also the smile, the confidence, the dignity, the well-being of the ones who wears that lipstick.
And how do you feel the society is going with all these filters and deep fakes and everyone trying to look and feel perfect? Do you think it's going the opposite direction now? What do you think the future is for beauty when it comes to perceptions around beauty?
The way I read it is that there is such a high degree of anxiety because we are bombarded every day. And do an exercise just for 5 minutes with this kind of paradigm. Just look for the sound bites of anything you see on your phone screen with 10 minutes of scrolling, and count how many times you see catastrophic, disaster, collapse, end of the world even, total war, violence. I mean, I can give you so many others. So all these are words so negatively charged that keep us in a complete tension and anxiety. Anxiety brings insecurity and obedience, by the way.
Yes.
So I don't want to push it to the level of that this is a conspiracy. I don't believe it comes there, but it's a self-inflicted pain that we have as a society, whereby inducing this constant anxiety, we also build huge insecurity. And therefore, the natural response with this insecurity, and it's a psychological trait, I've seen it in many focus groups, and I'm sure psychologists by profession can explain it better, then you try, to conform with the standards that are out there and make sure that you are there, because otherwise you feel, because of that general anxiety, that you could be ousted. So it could be. Yeah,
it makes sense. You, instead of focusing on ambition and building new things, you're just trying to conform and being busy with that.
That's it.
One thing I wanted to do is I want to talk to young women, and I want to talk to men as well. I had an episode earlier for a lady that is trying to explain women's hormones.
Yes, I saw that episode. Very interesting.
Amy Thompson, and she has a Moody Month. It's a really cool app. It's helping a lot of relationships. What advice would you have to young women today, trying to, make it in a corporate ladder, trying to start a family? We're having a lot of issues with people not getting married, this feminist movement against, not needing men or not wanting to have, a partner for life. What kind of advice would you have to, like a 18-year-old version of yourself today?
I think my advice would be, but see, I wouldn't have got it if I didn't go through this experience. So I don't know if just by getting the advice that young women would at least leap forward and not experience the same hardship I did. But my advice would be to really look at everything that they perceive initially that divides them, to see them actually there as their unique differentiators. So to switch the negative for positive. So whatever they see, either that they are too young, that they are women, that they are coming from a certain background, that they don't have enough of access to a certain environment, to find ways to switch it into positive, and then eventually multipliers their impact in anything they want to do, in their relationships, the way they connect with their community, in their professional life. And I can give you specific examples if you want, but I think to me that would have gained, not necessarily would have not accelerated my career, but I would have gained better well-being over those initial 10 painful years when I just leaned in.
Yeah.
And I don't believe the advice of leaning in is the right advice.
Yeah.
Especially for women.
What do you think is happening with this whole culture of, a lot of women starting OnlyFans accounts and, don't want a man in my life type situation? The extreme feminist movement. Do you believe it's a good thing? Do you believe it's going to go in the other direction?
This is a very interesting question. I think every activity finds its place as per the demand of the overall community, as long as it is not harming anyone, it's welcome. So if a woman decides to create a career on OnlyFans and this fulfills her and she's not the victim of it, and as long there is a demand for her content, I don't see any harm. If there is a harm, of course, I would have an issue with it. But in this moment, I wouldn't call it as not being an issue. The OnlyFans part of women who say they don't need a man generally in life. Again, I don't believe it's a majority. Majority of us, from what we see, we look for complementarity. We look for creating the right partnerships and find our significant one. But I respect everyone's decision. At the end, I'm coming back. We have 1 in trillion chance to be alive. So as long as I'm not harming other, I should be able to choose how I want to live it.
So I'm going to challenge you back on this one, because as a CEO of a major company causing transformational change, you can't always not harm people. Sometimes you're going to have to make decisions which are going to be better for some and worse for others. In your, the way that you live your life, the way you recommend people to live their life, if they asked you for advice, what would you say to a young lady who's, really into this, feminist movement? Then it comes down to your opinion. If she's asking for it, what would it be?
First of all, look, whatever I would tell, if you have a strong belief, that's your belief, right? Whatever I would tell you, you will still follow your set of values and principles and belief. I might have a different set of belief, and I might say, look, it's always good to find harmony and balance. I have always been a peace seeker. Of course, you look for the optimal. There is never, I'm a paradox manager. I understand that there is never white and black. Life has taught me that there is, and whomever says this is black or this is white, they are both wrong. Extremes will never define properly anything. There are always nuances. So I'm trying to find the optimal way to create most of the value in that given situation, understanding that might mean certain trade-offs, because we started with that, or certain harm for the greater good. So, of course, this is how we make decisions. One cannot be happy, really, speaking about pursuing happiness, without assuming rationally that this could come on the expense of somebody else's happiness. As an example, you got promoted, yes, and you became a CEO. Maybe there were other 3 candidates who wanted to be a CEO. Are they happy? In that moment, no. But they find their way to continue with their lives. So happiness for one doesn't necessarily mean the happiness for all.
Yeah.
But peace is everything. So to me, as a feminist, which is an extreme in the way we see the role of women, with the ultimate power, I do see empowerment of women with a different definition, which is much more nuanced. It's about the equality of chance, not equality of output.
Yeah.
I've never advocated for quotas, but equality of chance. give her the opportunity to have an education, give her the opportunity to make choices. And then it's all about meritocracy. Yes, because it's a tough world. We need people positioned to play in their best positions for us to evolve a society, as a business, as community, anything, as a country, anything you call out as a group. So this is what I would say to that young woman. Continue believing what you believe. Yet be aware, yes, that unless you collaborate with others and understand others' perspectives, there is no way to progress, to be heard even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, these situations, they cause a lot of doubt in people's minds. They don't know what side to take, and sometimes they do it for the wrong reasons, sometimes for political reasons as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about woke culture and in companies. We're going to cover that in a second. But I believe you've been an advocate of self-doubt as being a weapon, right? So how has self-doubt helped you in your life?
Sorry?
Self-doubt, when you doubt yourself.
Yes, yeah.
How has it helped you in your life? Because I've seen you
glad
speak about this before.
I'm glad you didn't call it the imposter syndrome. I'm glad.
No.
Thank
I don't
you,
like that. I don't like that
hate,
term.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Because it sounds so negative. And in reality, self-doubt can be such a fuel for energy. And it's healthy. Yeah. It's healthy because it keeps us fit with the environment. It keeps us learning. It keeps us humble. Never become complacent with what brought us here, to be enough of qualification to get us to tomorrow. Yeah. So to me, the self-doubt, if it's not becoming obsessive to a level that annihilates, yes, the value we could create, I would say it's a fuel for personal growth. It's a fuel for the community growth. It's a question I've started with almost my everyday of my professional life. And it's a tough one. I don't necessarily recommend it in every environment, in every situation, definitely not for those who are not ready to generally answer to themselves. Yes. So the question is, if my team, because usually, you're not elected by your team. You are designated by your bosses or a board in any given role. Yep. So then you ask yourself, if my team could vote today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, would they choose me as their leader today? And sometimes the answer is really brutal. Because you do understand you either stopped adding value, or you're not ready for a certain situation, or your team is not fully engaged, and you wouldn't choose yourself. If you really, you wouldn't lie to yourself. Some people do, but if you have that true, genuine kind of inner dialogue, sometimes the answer is really brutal. And the self-doubt then becomes a trigger. You have two choices. You either give up and say, that's it, I'm clearly not for this game, or, hey, I have to step up.
Yeah.
I need to learn more. Either it's a technical area, it's a leadership behavior, it's a new culture trait, yes. It's a new team mix, because every team reacts to a very different type of leadership. I had to be a very different type of leader in New York versus Moscow. Extremely different types of behavior in order for me to gain the traction I needed. So this is where self-doubt, to me, has been my biggest driver, my really transformative force behind my evolution.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think sometimes when you're fearful of something going wrong, you go the extra mile. You make sure it's correct. You add extra value. You just make sure that fear doesn't come to fruition.
That's it. And it's not paralyzing you, because some people can go so far. So again, optimal positioning. Take the best out of it. Don't let it become obsessive. Don't let it overwhelm you.
So let's talk a little bit about new generations. I love talking to people in schools and young people, and sometimes I've observed I'm a big fan in generational bias in teams. So I've observed in some of the companies and teams I've ran, there's up to 5 generations working in one team. But the thing that just drives me insane is the messaging come from CEOs and from the company. It's always one message for all. So I have some ideas around how to solve this, where the messaging goes slightly different to different generations. Of course, you cannot stereotype generations either, but there are some general different beliefs in some of them. And then having communication tailored, then you can get everybody moving a little bit better towards the same goal. But what's your experience working with Gen Z at the moment? They have this, it seems to be that they have this anti-hustle culture. They came from a family where their parents would live and die for their work. They don't want to live the same. They don't want to put their families through the same thing. So what are you seeing at the moment with Gen Z? How are they behaving at work? How do you motivate people who are coming into work today when they have this mentality? There isn't this culture of, giving extra and doing more in order to do better.
I think I do have a perspective, but I would like just to have a step back as well on my time when I was the youngest in the team. I mean, the age gap between me and my colleagues when I had my first regional management executive role was 15 years. So I was younger than youngest in the room. Mm-hmm. And predominantly they were men, very, very different type of dynamic in the management teams back then. And I found it extremely intimidating. So my generation at that time, we found these senior executive teams, we looked at them like gods. Something that it was a generation that expressed themselves with so much confidence that made it almost impossible for us to feel comfortable, working by their side. So it was quite a journey for me to learn to use my voice and understand that my voice matters because I was younger. Mm-hmm. So I had again to switch something that I saw as a barrier into my biggest differentiator and multiplier, and therefore made it a responsibility for myself and not something that some would have called a privilege, but a responsibility to make my voice heard because I was sure that I was there because they need to hear my voice. And then as I became the most senior over years, I institutionalized that exchange because I realized it's not coming naturally, both because the younger generation felt completely detached from the senior one, and as well for the senior ones that they felt they have nothing to learn from the younger ones. So I institutionalized it. I called it reverse mentoring. I think many companies do it. Mm-hmm. I led by example. I've had reverse mentors for the last 15 years. I've never missed my reverse mentors, 1-2 every year. And I would select them, not just the youngest, but also coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, mm-hmm. and different functional skills. It's from tech to R&D. And I would tell you some of my biggest strategic decisions were inspired by conversations with these young people.
Wow.
Not only for the nature of my communication, because you talked about this segmented communication, the way you would engage people mm-hmm. with different motivations, different generations, but as well the way we build up the strategy of the company. It gave me courage, it gave me to explore, because they don't know what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. They don't have those barriers we all have at certain age. Yes, when you believe that most of the things we've already done and they didn't work. Mm-hmm. They don't have that. Mm-hmm. They only have the appetite to explore, the courage, the optimism. Yes, they see new enablers, new tools, and therefore you need to go and bring that vibe, bring that flow into the game. So this is what I've done. I found it very inspiring. I continue to today. And now whenever I'm having quite a few mentoring relationships that I do pro bono, I do it with exactly this expectation of exchange. So I'm not positioning myself as mentor to a mentee, but both supporting one another, which opens up as well the young talent to feel like a mentor. Yeah. And therefore creates a partnership. It's a much better exchange of ideas. And so how you already kind of called out few of the traits that everyone talks about. In practice, it's difficult to stereotype. There are so many different personalities. Yes, indeed, they are not motivated in general by the same factors like we've been. But purpose, if there is a clear sense of purpose and a tangible, for them, visible, tangible impact that they have, they can move mountains.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's two things happening in the world which worry me. It's there's a movement where I think 20 to 30% every year, more and more people becoming freelancers instead of going into employment. So there's that movement. Then at the same time, work is getting more and more automated, and I think a lot of roles, a lot of things that people do in companies, the value of having a human worker is going down. In some cases, is up, of course. When you start combining these two scenarios together, where there's less and less people to employ who are great because they're either going to start their own companies, they're not going to employment, and a lot of the work that they're doing when they do go into employment is getting automated. What do you think will happen here? It looks like a bleak future where we're not going to be able to hire good people, and the good people that we do hire, they're going to be forced out anyway because of automation and AI.
It's another evolution. I think the only challenge is that it happens at such a high speed that society overall will not have enough time to adapt to it, like the Industrial Revolution. Yes, we've had decades to adapt to the new ways of engaging people into work and the work schedules as well, and very different work-life balance. It's very extremely fast. I think this is the biggest challenge. Other than that, I see it as a fascinating time era for us. I'm in the camp of the most optimistic ones. Yes, it's true. The jobs as we see them today, Bill Gates said a few weeks ago that 80% of the doctors in 5 years will not have a job. Because the reality is, if you have an MRI result, would you want to be read by a very experienced doctor who saw maybe 100,000 MRIs in his life, or you want an algorithm, an AI-powered algorithm who sees a billion in a second?
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, outside of, if we refer to the specific example, yes, the AI might read for me and give me the right diagnostic. I wouldn't need a doctor, but I would still need somebody who comprehends that area, to be the human touch, to be by my side when I make the right calls, powered by AI, augmented by AI, yes, in managing my health. So I do see an evolution of the overall jobs. It is a challenge because we will not have time. We'll skip 2 generations, because if now you have a very prescriptive career building steps where you would develop somebody for 20 years, 30 years before they become a CEO, from very junior roles to the senior roles, moving them through different departments in different companies and so on. Now, because of this automation with AI, in the next 3 years, majority of the junior accountant, finance analysts, you name it, yes, customer support, the content creators, all of those jobs, yes, will be disappearing. And you will have to rethink then how you build the executive decision makers, because you will still want certain human judgment in the way we manage our society, our schools, our education, our everything. So outside of this challenge with the time, I think we are going to learn to contribute differently with value. Maybe the new value doesn't mean 5 days of work a week. Maybe it means 2. Maybe it doesn't mean 8 hours, the setup in the industrial era. Maybe it means 3 hours. Maybe it's better for the overall well-being. We will learn how to reshare the income generation, because this is where it comes, the overall responsibility, that with the automation, we also learn how to give back, that this is not just about shareholder value, it's about stakeholder value, contribute back to community, to climate, to planet, to everyone. And we'll relearn to redistribute that value in a way that is meaningful for everyone. And that's my opinion. I know it's on the optimistic side, but I do not see it. Humanity is resilient. I don't believe we are at our end just yet.
Yeah, me too. Yesterday I was with quite a few government officials in Somerset House, and they were discussing policies for future of work.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time with governments from all over the world, looking at rules and regulations on work, AI, etc. One thing that I am quite worried about is I don't think governments are prepared for the amount of change that's coming. And a lot of the change that's coming is going to be it's going to be driven by the private sector. And the private sector cares a lot about profitability and shareholder value. So that's why I think there's going to be a period where there's going to be a lot of bleeding, let's say, as a metaphor, a lot of bleeding for a good decade before governments then start to catch up and realize, okay, we've got to do something about this and start telling the private sector what to do. And hopefully the private sector is not too powerful by then to tell the governments what to do. We saw when Trump was elected for the first time ever, a president inauguration, being surrounded by really one industry, which was the tech industry. There were very few other people there around him. So, and certain rules being bent for AI companies in the US around copyright laws to allow the AIs to consume more information so they can compete with China. So there's an interesting dynamic going on. And, you're also a very pragmatic person from the private sector. You've had to deal with government officials many times, I'm sure. There is a certain frustration because the worlds are so different. So that's the only bit I think that's going to get in the way a little bit. It's just I wish governments were slightly more prepared for this.
Boards are not prepared. We talked a little bit before this podcast. There is this Deloitte study, and I'm sure you are going to explore and learn more from it, that more than 80% of the boards, do not have the right skills to comprehend what AI is actually doing to their businesses, or how they can use it in a transparent, way with integrity, and how to really tap on its opportunities, avoiding the risks. And 45% of the board, only 45% of the boards have ever brought AI into their discussion. And now talking about the private sector, before we even talk about the government and all the regulating institutions, the private sector is not ready.
Yeah, nobody's ready, to be honest.
Exactly, nobody is ready to understand really how to responsibly use AI. But this is moving fast. I would tell you, I'm seeing already in UK as an example, you do have new policies around AI, created by the government. They're still quite general, but at least there are certain principles around the how to avoid the risk of bias, how to create a transparent, data use, how to make sure that the impact of it is not creating GDPR issues. You do have certain principles that are already set in stone as a regulating framework, and I think it will continue to evolve. But they need specialists like yourself, by the way, and to catch up with the rhythm of the evolution.
It's funny. I was in an event a few weeks ago with the Commonwealth leaders, and all the presidents and ministers of innovation, technology, are all there. And I was talking about, I was a bit bold because on the panel there was the Minister of Justice, I think for Jersey. And I literally said, look, no government wants to regulate AI because as soon as they do, that country will no longer be competitive because all the AI players will go to other countries that have less regulation. And then I was already being prepared for a lawsuit because that's a crazy thing to say. And he actually agreed with me. He said, you're right. Governments should under-regulate AI and encourage it and see what happens and help countries evolve. And I was a little bit shocked.
At least to stick around the key principles of do not harm.
Yeah.
And then learn with it, because look, especially in the areas of Gen AI, we all understand this can go into directions that very few could control, if any. So if at least the starting point we regulate in a way that the output will not create a disastrous impact, I think we will all be in a better place. That's one thing. Second, there are new certifications out there. I mean, I've just certified myself in AI corporate governance. So there are new educational modules out there for the board members. And I would suggest all board members out there, no matter what age they have and what background they might have, should really go and learn the basics of it, to be able, at least when the specialists like yourselves come to talk to them, at least to grasp the concept of AI and how to better support their executive teams.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about some more fun stuff, because regulation we're going to cry our eyes out.
Yeah.
So you talk a lot about being authentic, about being somebody who's humble. You know, in the world that we're in today with deep fakes, with people making AI avatars of themselves. I have an AI avatar of me, which is a perfect copy.
I got one too, yeah.
And you've got one too. So
Yes.
perfect. I'd love to see yours. I might put it up during the episode as well. This is a very strange era, right? Because authenticity is what kind of gets people to be well known. But then at the same time, they are faking it by creating avatars of themselves. I saw a company being launched a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember their name now, but they create an avatar of you to join Zoom and Teams calls, and they lip sync. But you could be anywhere else. You can be in a coffee shop on the beach, and as you're listening to the meeting and replying, it's looking like you're in a meeting in a professional setting. I mean, things are going a little bit crazy. So what thoughts do you have around AI? This kind of, wrestle with authenticity, people copying themselves, trying to be more authentic, ChatGPT creating a lot of content for people already. It's a bit of a battle.
Like everything in nature, it's like a pendulum. It goes to one extreme, and then somehow there is an inertia that brings it back to an optimal position. And so it swings till it finds its optimal place. I do believe in this case it will happen the same. Look at this. I mean, I saw an advertising recently with a call center of a given company. Now I think it was an airline, where the only one thing was called out, and there is a human operator, no matter what you call for. And that was the differentiator. And I was thinking, imagine me calling this as an advantage in the 80s.
Crazy, yeah.
So that tells that, again, the pendulum is swinging, because people are still craving. They don't want to talk to a robot. They are craving for human touch, human contact. So there is a way for us to really try all this out. There will be a hype for a while, but then somehow the ecosystem will find a way to self-regulate in a way that really supports our evolution as humanity. So I am curious to see how far we can go in many of these directions. I find them fascinating, funny, intriguing, mind-blowing, Black Mirror, some of them. So you'd find all that, which is exciting. But I'm absolutely convinced that for all of us as humans at the end, we are going to choose those who are giving us the best sense of, ourselves and our well-being.
There's a funny counter to that where there was a trial that was run where soldiers coming back.
I saw that.
Soldiers coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan. I think it was Afghanistan. They were given human therapists for 8 months.
Oh no, I didn't see
It's
that.
different,
I thought you talk about the one who brought the lawyer, and the lawyer was actually an avatar, an AI-powered lawyer to the court.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Okay, so
we'll talk about that in a second as well. And they gave these soldiers that had obviously PTSD, in battle for years. They gave him a human therapist for 8 months, and they also gave him an AI therapist for 8 months. And over time, they would talk to both. They would have sessions a week. And after a while, over 80% of the soldiers were asked to pick which one they preferred to continue having therapy with. And 80+% picked the AI therapist. Because during the sessions, they were finding that the human therapist was forgetting things they were saying. They had to keep repeating themselves, which is very frustrating.
Yes.
1 or 2 therapists would fall asleep because they were tired, because they're human. 1 or 2 therapists weren't trained in some areas that the soldiers were having issues with. But the AI therapist was able to just deal with everything. There was no judgment. There was no taboo topics that they felt ashamed to talk about that they would with another person. So I agree with you, but I think with the new technologies available today, the new models, I mean, they run out of breath when they speak. They have imperfections in their speech. They can even change accents to match, the local environment. I think with the new technologies, it's so indistinguishable, but the performance is so much more consistent that I think for some situations, people will definitely prefer if they try the new models. And we're seeing a lot of call centers going now because of this, but also customer satisfaction going up. So it's interesting. I would love to one day we have some offline time, and I'll show you some new stuff.
Yes, as I would love to see that. I mean, this is amazing indeed. It will give me some food for thought. I would also want to see longer term.
Yeah.
What the options of those PTSD sufferers would be.
Yeah.
Because I think as humans, of course, you would look for solutions that are personalized, truly personalized, and they see you, who you are, and you would be the center of that focus, which other human would be very difficult to offer. Yes, because they have their own priorities, their own lives, while an AI can do just that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we all crave for human connections. This is how we live. Yes, and you see it in the longevity studies that people who are isolated from the world have the least, I would say, the shortest life expectancy. So there is something in it that would keep people want to connect one with another. It might not be in the same way professionally. I don't see how the current education system can survive, because look, it was a few weeks ago that China announced that every pupil starting with the age of 6 will have AI as a mandatory subject.
Yeah.
While we still keep some in our educational systems, even here in UK, with all due respect, very rigid framework that has not been changed for 100 years. With all the respect for the legacy, times are requesting a very different way to teach children, and not to teach a class of 30, in exactly the same standards. And I believe that now with AI-powered algorithms, we can personalize teaching to a level that we could really be able to get the best out of every child as per their own potential and skills, and discover things that professors, currently teachers, don't have the time and the humanly the right focus to be able to explore and bring up from every of their pupils. So education will go through a deep revolution. And then you would ask as well, then what about the human touch a teacher would bring? There'll be other ways.
Yeah. So my son, for instance, my younger son, he goes to school, obviously, but he does have an AI tutor as well that talks to him about everything. And he has his own ChatGPT, modified, all this kind of stuff. And it does make a big difference after we've given him these tools. He's performing much better at school. He's happier. He feels more understood and heard. He's talking about other things that he cares about as well, not just the core subjects. So I wish schools did, allow this more. And also it would help the teacher a lot as well. So things like teachers marking, exams and marking constant homework every single week. That time should be spent with the kids, getting to know them better, helping them with difficulties that they're having. Kids going home, to have the same generic homework everybody else has, but that kid might have struggled in other areas of the subject. So having personalized homework is a really big topic. I think as well throughout the day, when kids are put into high, middle, low groups, I think that's so old-fashioned. We could accelerate learning of a child far, far greater if they were allowed to go to the curriculum at their own pace.
Absolutely.
Some kids will want to go slower, some want to go faster,
and
right?
Identify their triggers and their personal motivators and a reward system that would work for them. I mean, there are so many opportunities. I mean, I'm looking even now that we are talking about our kids going through the GCSEs. They have their GCSEs now in the next 8 weeks, but then the results are only end of August.
Yeah.
I mean,
Insane.
it's insane for
Yeah.
their mental well-being. I mean, now with AI power tools, even with today's technology, I find this not acceptable.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
to keep kids, waiting for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And same for A levels and all other exams. So yes, I do have big expectations of all these key health, educational, government as well. The government operates and learning the sentiment of their communities and neighborhoods in real time. This technology exists today. This is not futuristic. And then act upon it is with agility and manage their budgets in a more smarter way and less prescriptive way, the way they do right now. Speaking about the safety and as well the way we administrate our resources in community, there are so many things to be done with AI. If only people see AI as less threatening and something like the black box nobody gets, like a cybernetic model that nobody, it's not for, it's only for the tech people. If they only understand that it should be their companion every day, then we could do more of it. And we would be able to adapt, because you called it out, the challenge as well, to adapt to it faster, talking as well about the governments, the policymakers, the boards, executive teams everywhere, and every person.
Yeah.
At the end.
On the government side, I'm hopeful. I do see the Tony Blair Institute starting a lot of movement around digitizing governments. And there's some great work that Dr. Laura Gilbert is starting with TBI on this. And there's more coming. It's just starting to hire people now. So I hope that Tony Blair Institution is going to help governments modernize a little bit.
And not only, what I find as well outstanding about UK is that it's one of the very few countries I'm aware of that would really support with these tax credits, the investments in tech startups, SEIS is eligible startups, and I'm an angel investor myself. I invest in female-founded tech companies, and they come with outstanding, innovative, new AI-powered solutions that are going to revolutionize the way you operate, and both in business and in community. And the fact that the government actively supports investors in these startups, I think it's something to be praised, because it's quite unique.
Yeah, it does help.
In Europe, yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the future of beauty. So I did ask this to Miss Universe, and it was a difficult topic to come about, because it can be a little bit technical. But when you see a lot of famous people, actors, models, digitally copying themselves, a lot of billboards now, sort of flying them over to a different country, doing a photo shoot, putting clothes on them, everything's been done electronically now for some models, right, who want to sell their rights.
Mm-hmm.
What other things that you think is going to happen in the beauty industry because of AI?
There are amazing trends out there, some of them really mind-blowing. I mean, you see what happened with Madonna. She's not to be recognized at 70 plus. She looks like a 20-something old woman. And this is showing that the pressure around looking young and vibrant, it's just becoming higher. And this is also because of all these avatars who are, inflicting even more of an expectation of the general audience is to look like this as well in real life. So I believe when it comes to beauty, outside of the cosmetic light procedures, the industry will evolve and create out of the surgical interventions as well to be the norm, just like in South Korea, where every 18-year-old gets as a traditional gift a cosmetic surgery. And I don't see it as a good trend. Yet I think it's here to stay for the upcoming years, and we will see it gaining intensity. On the other side, the one that I welcome is the beauty trend that blends with well-being. That goes that beauty means health, beauty means being fit, beauty means feeling happy, feeling complete, making my choices, being free to make choices. That's beauty to me, and it's a trend that, again, I think well-being industry, we are going to see big players looking to make their mark. Currently, it's quite fragmented with lots of small companies playing here, but I do see the highest growth here, both as an investor and as well as somebody who watches this industry avidly. So beauty and well-being will blend a lot, because it's not just about the quality of skin and the way how my face looks and the way my body is. It's also the way I move, the way I express myself, the confidence that comes generally from the, how well we feel, and the zest for life, the appetite for life. So appetite for life will be yet another factor that plays, because post-pandemic, the morale generally went down. I mean, the overall depression is almost, you'd hear about it in almost every conversation. So the new beauty will be equal vibrance and appetite to live, to have intense immersive experiences. I think the beauty, this new sense of beauty, will also develop adjacently other industries, like the entertainment. Entertainment will become much more immersive, less passive. Currently, we watch entertainment. I think the future of entertainment is we feel entertainment, the same like beauty. So now we watch beauty and we want to project, look beauty. The future of beauty is feel beauty.
Yeah.
Feel beautiful, feel strong, great, and enjoying life at its maximum. So I think this is the transition we are going to see. And majority of the players in every industry are going to prioritize immersive experiences, from those in the store, even from the commodity. Even for the commodity, people are going to pick the stores that are not only just most convenient online or close to their home, but those as well that are offering them an experience that will make them feel special.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've seen a lot of technology around, if there's an advert on something, TV's emitting the smell, and giving these kind of experiences, these 4, 5, 7, 8D cinemas, which are...
I'm waiting to see when they would bring that home, where instead of having a living room with a big flat screen, we are going to have a dedicated room, empty room, just for immersive 3D experiences.
Wow, exciting.
Where you're not going to watch Rambo or, fighting in the jungle. You're going to be in the jungle.
Oh gosh, it's a bit
Rambo,
scary.
so.
I'm going to get PTSD. I need an AI therapist then.
Yes.
What you mentioned, this blend of beauty and health. I don't know if you're aware of the work from Brian Johnson, where he's trying to, he has his campaign, Don't Die. This is billionaire that's trying to...
The longevity. Yes.
Do you think there's going to be more and more of that happening? People having labs in their homes and all kinds of things?
Very much so. That's why I called out the well-being extraordinary potential. I was thinking longevity as the ultimate purpose. People will be looking not just to extend their life, but feel better in their kind of sunset type, of chapter of their life. So that's the ultimate goal. Enjoy life till its last day, and not dreading, the time post-retirement. And it's extraordinary what's happening in this space. I've been to the Health and Wellbeing Summit in London, by the way, which is one of the biggest longevity dedicated summits at the global scale last year. It's going to be another one in June, I think. And we've seen researchers from all over the world coming in with the last genetic microbiome microbiology researches, and they were coming with outstanding, all by the way, powered these insights by AI, because what happens currently is you have lots of data globally, lots of data from certain studies who have never been finished, so fragmented types of data. And once labeled, and you don't even need them to be labeled right now with a Gen AI. They can get a glimpse of insight from South Korea, with a glimpse of insight from, I don't know, Massachusetts, and research lab and then bring together completely new insights that are going to completely change the sense of how we enhance our beauty, our well-being, and ultimately our longevity. And that's the ultimate, at the end, the ultimate scope. And it's going to be a big, speaking now about where the new jobs will be, where the growth will be. More and more we see the forces of investments, interest, as well insights. Almost every week we hear new mind-blowing insight in the fight against cancer, new longevity information. They're all coming together. So indeed, fascinating times.
Yeah, and look, living longer creates its own challenges as well. It causes problems with the demographics. People not having, not getting married as much, not having as many children, older people.
I see it on optimistic side because I'm not looking, I don't believe, I know everyone is saying like if you get to survive the next 5 years, then you could expect to live up to 100. Fine. I don't know what to think about that just yet. But what I deeply believe is that with the insights we are gathering and the new enablers and the new outputs we have from researchers around the world, with the power of AI to really consolidate all this data and give us a new interesting areas to explore, I believe that we actually benefit the world by lengthening the period where we can provide value to others. Because longevity is about feeling good for a longer time in our lives.
Yeah.
Feeling good means adding value. So instead of becoming a liability at the age of 66 or 60 or God knows when, depending on everyone's health, we are extending the period where we are as active as a 20 years old. And I think that's what's going to be good for the society.
Wow, that's a really unique perspective. I haven't heard that before.
I told you I'm an optimist.
So look, we're talking here really about legacy, right? People wanting to live longer, be a better version of themselves for longer, creating copies of themselves that could live eternally, that have all of their knowledge, all the things they've ever said. And look, I think you should be very proud of the legacy you've built. Honestly, I think it should be studied, what you did with Avon, especially at a very difficult time. You're very humble. You're too humble enough to say it, but I think it should be studied. And I will suggest it to a couple of business schools, actually, that I teach in. And talking about legacy, there's a new tradition we're going to start on the podcast, and you're going to be the first person we're going to do this with. So don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to write a question for the next person, like Diary of a CEO. I would like you to have a think, and you can take a time, you can take minutes to think on this. It will be edited out, don't worry. I would like you to think of one or two people that have created an immense impact in your life that you personally know, that you would like to come on this podcast to have a voice for them to also impact other people. So who would be that one or two people that you want to call out personally to come on for them to also have a voice, to teach them, other people, what they've taught you?
I'm glad you haven't prepared me for these questions because then I can follow myself. I don't think too much. Therefore, the very first person that comes to my mind is the one that in a way changed my life. And his name is Sudhanshu Palsule. He is a professor associated to Duke University, coming from India. He was my coach in the early stage of my career when I was 27, 28 and having my first middle management roles. And when I had my first regional meeting and I opened that door, I said this story many times, but I didn't call who was the one behind it who really helped me go through it. It was very difficult for me because I felt inadequate for the environment. It was like me joining an old boys cigar club. And I called him that evening and I told him, look, I want to go back. They've made a mistake for promoting me in this role because look, I was the only woman there. I am very young, so I was not even 30, and they were all older than 45. They are all Brits and from US, and I'm from Romania. I mean, we are coming from such different worlds. They talk about golf. They talk about they take all their decisions to the bar in the evening. The way the banter, across the table. I cannot even join that. I mean, they wouldn't feel comfortable as well to include me to be one of the guys. Yes, nor I would feel comfortable to do the same jokes. So I felt I'm completely an outsider. And then he said, so what are the barriers specifically, he said, that you see? He said, first, I'm a woman. Second, I'm too young. And third, I'm from Romania, from an emerging country. And then he said, you just called out your biggest multipliers. So now think next time when you go to that room that you are not on the opposite side of the table, but just by their side, contributing with your perspective as a feminine perspective, coming from a different generation and from an emerging market. Isn't that beautiful that they will hear these perspectives as well? And make it your responsibility and not just something you believe it's a gift to you. No, it's a responsibility that you should call out your opinion. So it's not like the second day I opened the door like in the American movies, yes, and all of a sudden, I went to a chart and really owned the room. But it was a milestone, really a tipping point for me. And it made me appreciate then creating around myself as diverse teams as possible. My teams have been diverse to an almost crazy level that none of our meetings was comfortable. I don't remember a meeting with any of my teams that I worked with in Russia, in Turkey, in the last 5 years as CEO with a global team that has been comfortable to lead just because of their completely different upbringing. But I found comfort in the fact that I've never missed various paradigms or perspectives around any given topic. And then if you have the right relationship and strength, you get at the end, and as well the alignment. But it's extremely important to bring diversity. So I think to me, a person I would highly recommend to you would be Sudhanshu Palsule, because he has written as well books about human leadership and showing how it's important in this new world to go far from autocratic leaders and bring in human connectors who, understand the value of ecosystem more than chain of command.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, we hope that we can get him on so he can teach us all these great values. Thank you so much, Angela, for coming on. It's been a pleasure. And there's many more things we can talk about. I appreciate it.
Same here. Thank you so much.